You're listening to the Behind the Tee podcast, hosted by your favorite club curlers, Rob and Kelly. The show where we share our thoughts on what's happening in the curling world with the internet. But let's be real, we end up talking about football half the time anyways. Welcome back to the Behind the Tee podcast, and we're coming at you after another thrilling evening of football madness.
That's right. We didn't even waste time saying hi to each other. Like, it's all business today, Kelly. We got no time.
We got no time to chit-chat.
That's right. Actually, yeah, so we're recording this on a Monday afternoon, which is a little bit unusual to us, although it's gone very good for timing it around late-breaking news stories and big football developments, which we'll get to later. And if you're listening to this all happened probably 2 weeks ago, but we have to talk about the first NFL weekend here and how crazy it was.
Yeah, so this weekend was the AFC and NFC championships. So both winners are moving forward to the Super Bowl. And in true 2022 football fashion, there was another upset and another almost upset.
And nearly overtime, like these days, like games not going to overtime is a rarity, it would seem.
So I don't really care much for any of the teams that were left. So we had the Bengals versus
Kansas City.
And Kansas City was like the clear favorite. You know, they've been at the past 2 Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes, just next phenom. Bengals were bottom of the pack starting this season.
Oh yeah, like they came in. So 2 years ago they were 2-14. That's how they got Joe Burrow. They were the worst team in the league, and they got the number 1 draft pick. Last year they looked better, but then Joe Burrow got hurt, and they only won 4 games. And now here they are in the Super Bowl. The thought I had is like to go from the worst team to the potential best team. This is just like what the Habs did, but in the other order.
Yeah, exactly.
It's backwards.
And I don't know, I watched most of that game, and I really found myself rooting for the Bengals. Like, I have nothing against Kansas City, but you know,
Me too.
The Bengals were very much the underdog here. And again, this game went into overtime, and I was legit stressed. Like, my heart was pounding.
Oh, me too. And before we get to that, can we just backtrack for a minute? Because I thought the score was going to be like 35-0 Kansas City at halftime. Or not nothing. I know Cincinnati had points, but Kansas City was running away with it. They scored touchdowns on all of their first drives, and they were about to get another one on the very last second of the game. And when they could have gone for a field goal, I think they somewhat arrogantly decided to no, let's be flashy and go for another touchdown. Ran out of time, came away with nothing, and to me that was the turning point. Like they could have ended the game right there probably with the touchdown.
I went home yesterday, and I got home and I checked the score, and yeah, Kansas City they were winning by a strong margin. And I told my mom, I was like, watch this, the Bengals are going to pull a Tom Brady and come back and win this game. And look what they did.
You said that in our pool.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm really happy for them. I really hope that they can continue this into the Super Bowl and not get destroyed by the other team that won, the LA Rams against San Francisco. I think LA is the clear favorite to win this year.
Yeah, although you never know. I mean, when you think of the teams that Cincinnati has just taken down, like in Tennessee, which they did a week ago, who was the best team in the AFC all year, and then Kansas City, who is and to do it in Kansas City too is virtually unheard of. So they could it's not crazy to believe they can go in and
Oh, and also too, in that overtime, Kansas City won the toss, and I was like, oh no, that's it, Kansas City wins.
I know.
And they did not.
Okay. And we have to I know we're a curling podcast, but bear with us. We'll get there eventually. But we have to talk about, I hate NFL overtime.
Yes.
And the coin toss thing. To me, it's so crazy. And we actually need to illustrate my point here. I think we have to back up a week before.
Okay, well, hold on. Should we just state the rule in case no one knows?
Yeah, sure.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I learned this just the other day.
All good.
In overtime, the team that wins this toss has the first drive. If they whoever scores a touchdown first. So if that team that has the first drive scores a touchdown, game over. That's it.
That's right.
However, if they score a field goal, then that's it for them, and the other team gets to drive.
They get a chance to respond.
Yeah,
Yes.
and if they score a touchdown, then it's game over.
Right. So first team to score a touchdown wins. If you get a field goal, the other team gets a chance to respond.
Which is so stupid. I don't understand.
And you know, it used to be worse. It used to be that a field goal could win you the game,
Yeah.
which is much easier than a touchdown. And people have argued over this for years that well, if you want to win the game, then your defense should be good enough to stop them. But I think that was before the world saw Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I mean, we have to back it up to that Buffalo game. First of all, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, our hearts go out to you. I can't imagine what that must have been like. I was there completely neutral, and I felt like that took 10 years off my life.
Oh,
I've been seeing
absolutely.
a lot this year, by the way, like the Trials final, the Formula One thing, which I don't really know much about, but I got from you. We've been seeing a lot of these crazy, down to the wire, heartbreaking finishes, and that was just another one on the pile. And the emotion that Buffalo fans must have gone through, who are already very hard luck fans, Buffalo's had a horrible time. I couldn't believe that. And again, for that game, like you knew whoever was going to win the coin toss in was going to win the game. So that game basically came down to the coin toss. I thought it would yesterday too when Kansas City won the toss. Fortunately, Mahomes threw an interception.
Yeah. And I was texting another friend too, and we are all like, oh, shoot, Kansas City won the toss. And I texted back and I was like, watch, there'll be an interception. And there was. Honestly, I don't know
Calling
what I
everything
was
with
drinking
Cincinnati.
yesterday, but
Calling everything right with them. But yeah, NFL overtime is just awful. And I'm hoping that the Buffalo Kansas City game probably got people talking about why it's so bad. At least in Canada in the CFL, each team, it basically is a shootout. Like each team starts at, I think it's the 35, and they get to scrimmage. And if you whatever you do, the other team gets a chance to respond. And it goes quickly.
And I think it should. I mean, that sounds fair. Like it's like that in soccer. Overtime, every team has like one half,
Yeah,
like they swap halves, and it makes it fair.
that's it. I don't like I don't like the shootout very much. It seems like a very arbitrary way to decide a game in a game where it's
Yeah,
very hard to score.
but at least they have two overtime before they get to the
Yes, it's
shootout.
a last resort, and
Yeah,
it's fair. Imagine if like the first team to kick a penalty kick or
yeah,
penalty. Obviously, I'm not a soccer fan here. Imagine that, and like the other team doesn't respond.
yeah, exactly. Or even in overtime, the first team to score just wins. It's like, well, that sucks.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I know we're wasting time here on other sports, but can we actually squeeze in soccer for a minute?
Yes, another
Yes,
breaking news.
because I know, like, we've it's a World Cup year. You know how everybody's got their country that they cheer for the World Cup. Well, all that might have to go out the window as we throw our support behind Canada.
I know they beat the U.S.
I know there's something I never thought would happen in my lifetime until we hosted it, but we appear it's not a done deal yet, but we're in very good shape to qualify for this year's World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. So Canada was playing the U.S. yesterday, and they beat them 2-0, which is very impressive.
Probably helps that the game was played in Canada in January outdoors.
Maybe. But I did have the thought did cross my mind because I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast already, but I'm quite the big fangirl of the German national team. I'm like ride or die. I love that team. And
Ooh, dilemma coming up.
I know. What would I do? Cheer? Like, I guess I would have to cheer for Canada because it's quite standard in North America because we're not big on football, like soccer football. We do enjoy watching the Euro Cups and the World Cups. Like, people get really invested into them, but everyone just is a fan of a different country, either through most often times through heritage, and then you just have a favorite team. So what would we do as Canadians? Like, would we all just start cheering for Canada and forget those other teams?
I know. I remember seeing a news report on this from 1986. I wasn't alive then, but the last time Canada made it to the World Cup was the '86 World Cup, and so this came up on the news recently. They were showing old footage, and they were talking to people in bars, and they were asking like, "Who are you going to cheer for?" And not many people rallied behind Canada. They stuck to their traditional European teams because, as they rightfully said, Canada was not going to contend with the rest of the world, and they didn't. I don't even think they scored a goal at that World Cup. And it might be the same this year too.
Yeah.
But
Like, I
so
would be surprised if they even just get out of their group, to be honest.
oh, I'd be shocked. I mean, again, I know very little, but hey, you know what? It'd be awesome to be there. It would be awesome to make you face the dilemma of Canada versus Germany. By the way, the answer is Canada.
Yeah.
You can cheer for Germany after they destroy us.
Hopefully, they won't end up in the same group, but we'll see. We'll see. I
Yes,
can split my allegiance to both countries, I guess.
yes. And this is again, like we have so much to talk about today. This is the worst possible time to bring this up. But while we're on the soccer thing, something that we've never talked about, but we should. It's not just a huge year for the Canadian men's national team. I don't think we've ever addressed this, but what a year it was last year for the Canadian women's national team.
I don't think that's just us. I think that's the rest of the world just never talks about women's soccer.
It's unfortunate because I meant to do this on like our "What Did You Do This Summer" show. It goes to show how late I am. We get sidetracked by everything. But here, while we're talking about soccer, they also beat the United States, which in women's play, the United States is like the number one team in the world. They are the
But even the Canadian team is so this is the thing with soccer, the difference between men and women. Soccer is a lot more popular here as a women's sport. Like and I say here, I mean in North America compared to Europe. This is my experience too, just from my time spent living in Europe. The emphasis on sports isn't the same as it is here in North America. Like here, every kid grows up playing soccer, and women just tend to like keep on it, whereas boys will switch to football or hockey or like baseball. And then in Europe, there's just not that like sports presence, especially in childhood as much. And football is just like the universal sport. So obviously all the guys will play that because football, hockey, baseball, there are no other like competing sports. So yeah, that's kind of
yeah.
why the women, the Canadian and the US team just dominate because it's just not as big in the other parts of the world.
We're confusing the hell out of every international listener we've got because we're going interchangeably between soccer, football, and
I
American
know.
football, and like we could not be more confusing. And actually, I got that wrong. They beat Sweden in the gold medal game
Oh,
back
okay.
in. But there are some like Germany, Sweden, I believe the Dutch team. There's some really strong European women's national teams too. And Canada has been very good in women's soccer for years, but they've never won any major event. They've never won a World Cup. They've never won an Olympic gold medal. Christine Sinclair is the greatest women's soccer player in history and has nothing to show for it. And I was so happy to see her finally get the gold medal that she so very much deserved. I know I'm like, what, 8 months late on this?
Yeah.
But since we were talking about soccer and we're about to head into another national women's sport here, I guess that's the more current thing we can do. Do you know a very famous Canadian soccer commentator
Who?
who called Canada making it to the World Cup back in the 80s?
Who?
You know him as Vic Router.
Vic. No
Vic calls
way.
soccer. He actually still does. He calls Impact. Oh, sorry, clubbed foot, whatever they're called.
Club de Football de Montréal.
I know. I like clubbed foot if you say it quickly. He calls Montreal games in Major League Soccer, but
Oh, I did not know
he
this.
used to do like the national team a long time ago, and he's getting his money's worth this week, Kel, because there's no Russ and there's no Brian Mudryk either.
Yeah, what happened to Brian at the Scotties?
I know he's not there. I actually did some research. So Russ has tested positive, unfortunately, just as he got there. So I don't think he's going to clear his quarantine until at least Thursday. But Brian is off to the Olympics, so
Oh, okay.
he's probably quarantining as well. But he's going to be calling Olympic events. So because of that, I guess he's out of the picture, which means 3 draws a day for our old pal Vic.
I wonder if he gets a bonus because of that. Oh, well, even Kathy Gose too is getting a little more.
I know, yeah, like they're putting in their hours.
Oh yeah, and apparently, so I don't know if you missed this or caught this in one of the broadcasts, but they're making fun of Kathy Gose's height, and because
Yes, I
apparently,
did hear this.
okay, well, hold on a second, because so you know she made the joke that she needed to get like the little
She
stools.
had to stand on a box or something, right?
Yeah, because to be the same height as Vic and Cheryl. I don't know if have you ever met Cheryl in person?
Yes.
She's about like 5'3". So Kathy must be really, really tiny.
I've stood next to Vic. I have took a picture with Cheryl Bernard a long time ago. I don't remember that much, but I've never met Kathy Gauthier. I don't think I've ever
Neither have
seen her
I.
either. So,
And like
very
I'm
interesting.
about 5'6", 5'7", and Cheryl is definitely tinier than me. So I was just like, oh dear, I
Okay.
thought
Oh, I'll have to go look at that again.
and maybe there's a stat somewhere on the internet.
Maybe people keep track of heights of curlers.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I guess let's segue into Scotties because that kind of kicked off this weekend, and we have a couple draws that have been underway.
that's right. Hey, Kelly, who's in first place?
I don't even know.
New Brunswick.
Before we get there, can I just make a comment?
Oh, I have. We have several. You lead us off.
Okay, this is just about Thunder Bay, and apologies for all you Thunder Bay listeners out
Oh
there.
no. Oh no. Here we
But
go.
okay, so because this is happening in Thunder Bay, there's a lot of promotion being made from the Thunder Bay Tourism Board. I didn't know
Right.
they had one, but it's quite funny because the commercials they have are actually well shot. Like they really paint Thunder Bay in a very good light. Come visit Thunder Bay, spend your vacation in Thunder Bay, and I'm still thinking like out of all the places to go and visit, I still would not go to Thunder Bay because it's also like one of the cities with the highest crime rate per capita in Canada.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh yeah, and it's incredibly tiny. Like
Okay. I lived in Winnipeg for a while and they claim to be number one.
yeah, I mean, I say crime. I mean, a lot of it is just like drug related, like
Okay.
everywhere else in Canada. So I'm sure if you go, you will not get like stabbed or anything. But also just the cost too of getting to Thunder Bay because it's so isolated is probably more expensive than like a 2-week trip to Europe or something like that.
Yeah, my thing with is that I don't really agree with you. I like those ads too. I also find it kind of cute how like it's Rick Lang the one trying to convince you to come to, which I actually thought was a nice touch. Like that
Yeah.
it was Rick Lang and Krista McCarville and Heather Houston and Al Hackner. Like some of the legends of North Ontario curling are trying to get you to come to Thunder Bay. And if this country were easier to access and cheaper, I would. I think I've really believe that everybody should see as much of Canada as they possibly can. It's just it's not reasonable.
It's true. Well, I mean, if you have a certain budget to travel and your options are, a week in an all-inclusive in Mexico, trip to Europe, Southeast
Yeah,
Asia, or Thunder Bay.
it just doesn't look good for two Montrealers to start talking about like Thunder Bay.
We've been to quite a few remote
But
places in
we've been
Canada,
to
yeah.
these places through curling. Thunder Bay is not one of them.
Nope.
But hey, you know what? If I get the chance to curl somewhere, and if Curling Canada is going to pay for it, then all the better. It can be wherever.
I guess, and it also is nice to see a different part of the world that's not Calgary. Because did you know Calgary is also a city in Canada that you can go visit?
I didn't. It's I wonder if they've ever hosted anything.
I don't know. I heard something about that last year, but I would rather not remember.
Oh yes.
So, if you go through the current standings for Pool A, and you can probably just comment on the performance of some of the teams so far, and
Yes.
maybe their jackets as well, because
Oh, that's got to get its own chapter. Sorry, not to tell you what to do here, but
I have a funny comment on that. But let's just first run through the
okay.
teams. So in Pool A, at the top of the leaderboard with a 4-0 record is Team New Brunswick, our favorite team.
I know.
And then followed by Wildcard 1, Fleury, and Krista McCarville and Saskatchewan. So they're kind of like the top teams at the moment. Your best friend, Carrie, not doing too well at
Not
the
a very
moment.
good start, and boy, that Nunavut team really took her the distance as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're at 0-4.
That's right, but interesting game from them, or interesting results so far. And keep in mind, only the top 3 teams are making it out of each pool. Not the traditional 4. There is no championship pool.
Exactly. And I only watched a couple draws this weekend. It is the beginning, so there's a lot of time for things to change. But
Yeah.
just across the board, the curling hasn't been the best.
No, to put it mildly, I agree
Yeah.
with you. The other comment about Thunder Bay I have to sneak in here is that it's so nice to actually have a curling event that we're watching on TV be in our time zone.
Oh, yes.
Thunder Bay really should be on a different time zone, but it is in the same time zone as us, and that's really nice. Although I'm still falling asleep through some of the games anyway.
I had it playing in the background and was just doing other things, and it was to the point where like I even forgot it was in the background. But every time I'd catch a shot or something, it was just a lot of missed opportunities.
I know, and I don't want to sound like overly critical here, and it especially doesn't look good from like a guy criticizing women's curling. But
Oh, it's okay. I'm a woman. I'm still criticizing them as
the
well. It is
level
what it
of
is.
curling is pretty disappointing, and I mean we all miss shots. And the funny thing is, I've sat here with you and argued before that it'd be nice to see more misses. It'd be nice to see more of a level playing field or something like that, or just not 100% perfect curling. But I see these games where I'm like, I think I forget it was Ontario against maybe I can figure this out. On the Ontario team versus I think Einerson, perhaps. I'm not sure. Einerson looked very shaky, very vulnerable, and the Ontario team was not able to capitalize. And when I say not able to capitalize, I mean like not even close. Just like
Yeah.
get this anywhere over the hog. Don't be heavy. Whatever you do, just don't be heavy. And missing the wrong way, not recognizing the tolerance. I know you'd love that.
And to add to your point, like, and this is the one thing, so I feel like men's and women's games are getting slightly boring, but for different reasons. The men, when you have a game where everyone's shooting 99%, it is quite boring, to be
I
honest, because
agree.
it's just, you're just waiting for that one person to miss a shot. And if anything, they'll just blast everything with a takeout.
I agree. And that becomes the one interesting shot of the end is how did they blast? Woo, look at all those rocks fly. But after that, it's boring.
Exactly. So that's how you end up games with 5 blank ends because they're just shooting lights out and nothing. If the end's not going their way, one team is just going to blast everything. And then you have on the other side of the spectrum women's curling, which is not fun to watch in the sense because they're more misses and the end just never gets to be set up properly. And yeah, it is okay. Like, it's great to have those misses in there. But when a team on average is curling 60%, or like players are 40% on their draws and 75 on their hits, like that's what we throw at our curling club game
I
ladder
know.
games.
Like, I don't want to be mean because I'm sure everybody on their couch is saying, I could beat these teams. But there are times where, I mean, we've been around the block a little bit where I'm like, yeah, we've played
Yeah.
better than that.
I mean, I remember at like even back at our junior days, like those were not acceptable scores to have.
No, like you weren't going to win too many games with that.
Exactly. So that's just kind of frustrating. And I get it. Like a lot of teams, we had another COVID type year where teams haven't curled a lot. But then at the same time, like these are players who are spend their time curling. And I just expect a little more, just a better performance in general. And I get it. You can always blame the ice and there's no fans. So the air circulation and
Oh, but
there's
I
all
agree
the
with you
excuses.
totally here. It is a bit disappointing. I'm not saying it's not interesting just because what I always find interesting is not the individual games, but kind of like the race in the standings and like who's beaten who and
Mhm.
the race for the playoffs. And that already is off to a bit of an interesting start. Like we know the New Brunswick momentum will probably not carry through as much
But
as
you
I'd
never
love it
know.
to. You never know. I'd love it to. It'd be awesome. But that's going to throw a whole wrench into everybody's predictions because nobody
Mhm.
had them making it out, did they? Or
I guess that's what's kind of interesting now as well because everyone's kind of playing at the same level. There is no clear winner. Like there is sometimes in the men's play, you're like, who is going to make it to the playoffs, or the outcome is already set before we even start playing. Whereas women's, honestly, right now, it's kind of a free for all.
it is, yeah. It's I mean, I think we could say that Einerson is looking good. I mean,
Yeah.
actually, yeah. Like, that's a good point. Let's jump to the other pool. Einerson is undefeated. So is Mac Zach. I don't know if that'll catch on. Mackenzie's.
I love it, Max. It took me a couple seconds to clue it there.
You heard it here first.
But then afterwards, tied for third in the, well, I guess they've only played 3 games yet compared to others. But like Northwest Territories, Carrie Galusha's hanging in there.
She's 2-1. Although looking at she beat the Yukon team and the Ontario team, and that Ontario team is not curling well.
Oh no.
So her 2 wins are against the last and second to last. Nova Scotia is also 2-1. Let's see here. Alberta is off to a slow start. They're 2-2, and they could easily be 0-4. The two games that they won were right down to the last shot. Laura Walker had to make two really good ones to win. She did, but Alberta is on thin ice here.
They can't afford any more losses, essentially.
No, and I'm just looking at their schedule. They still have to play Nova Scotia. They still have to play Manitoba and Max Zach. So they've got a tough road ahead of them, Alberta.
Yeah, yeah.
The difference is this year is that last year you had to not just win your preliminary games, you carried your record with you into the championship pool. So every loss really would cost you. Here, that's not the case. You have to finish top 3. So if their record is shaky, actually the difference between finishing second and third is really minimal. It's just you're not going to have Hammer in the playoff game. So they got to make it out, and I still think they will. Because I don't think Quebec is looking very good.
I guess it just depends on how Maxac and Nova Scotia hold out for the rest of the week.
Yeah, and Nova Scotia, let's see, got clobbered by Einerson. They have a win over BC and Northwest Territories, and you know what? Don't sleep on BC yet. They started 0-3, but they could have won a couple of those games too. They were all tight.
Maybe they just need to loosen those old joints a little bit beforehand.
So who have we not offended here?
No, but honestly, like my dream was for them to come to the Scotties and just like own everyone, being like, we're the OG players. We're gonna show you how curling is done. Like that would have just been epic.
I would love it, and they haven't done that. However, they're the best 0-3 team. That they're all 3 games that they lost, they could have very easily won.
Yeah, like we were winning Scotties while you were still in diapers, kind of thing, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
Maxac probably wasn't even born yet. That's how OG they are.
No, they brought it up that like Taylor McDonald, who is older than Mackenzie Zacharias, was not born when Marianne or when one of them was competing.
Oh wow,
something like that.
Yeah, because Taylor she played juniors after we aged out. So
yeah, like she was so she's young, quite a bit younger than us.
Okay, can I talk about the jackets for a second?
Okay, so if we're gonna get to this, I just want to say first, one of my favorite moments last year from our podcast, and you know what? This isn't even about our podcast. This is one of the favorite moments that we've had together, at least for me. You went on an all-out rampage, taking down those Briar jackets last year. It was like 10 minutes long. It was so eloquently delivered. I remember I tried to say something, and you were like, "Oh no, I'm not done."
Okay.
It was my favorite thing. And so I've been waiting for weeks. In fact, I wanted to wait until today. I couldn't help myself. I sent you a picture of the jackets when they came up. The world wants to know, Kelly, what do you think of these jackets?
Okay, I still hate them. But my rant's going to be a lot shorter this year.
Oh,
I could compare it to something. So they're quite colorful this year, and you can Google what they look like. But essentially, there's a lot of lines near the seams, like the shoulder, a little bit down the side. But the main concept that they chose this year was to have a gradient across the torso of the jacket.
For some teams, that's the other awkward part.
And it depends on what your provincial colors are, because it works better for some than others. But the only thing I can compare it to, do you remember back in like elementary school or even high school when PowerPoint came out for the first time? And everyone took the creative liberty to make like cool backgrounds, and there were even like the preset ones, and all the presets had like that colorful background gradient from like blue to orange, or like purple to white, or something like that. Having all the jackets like that together just makes me think of Microsoft PowerPoint circa 2002.
That's not what it made me think. Well, now that you say that, I agree. What I thought of was particularly the ones that are white, like the Manitoba jacket is yellow transitioning into white, which to me was like if you take a paper towel and you dip it in something yellow, let's say canola oil, and let's say it's a sponge towel. See, maybe this was by design.
Maybe.
And it's like rising up by osmosis or something like that. That's what I got when I saw the yellow onto white. I was like, ew, this is just some yellow thing rising up a paper towel. So I really don't like the Manitoba look. To me, actually, I think I told you that was the one I hated the most. I'm going to take that back. The one that I really disliked the most is the North Ont one.
Oh, the
Because
yellow
that's
and the green?
yeah, that's green transitioning into yellow, which when I looked at it, to me looked like the what I kept thinking was it's like swamp water with some nasty yellow fumes coming off of it or something like that. That's the vibe I got from that jacket. Not the kind of look you want.
And it's wild card 3-2 where it's white, blue, and red.
Oh yeah, okay, we have to talk about that too. One of my big pet peeves with jackets, not just this year, is that I get it. There's 18 teams and only so many colors. And we know that Manitoba and New Brunswick have similar color schemes going on. But what I never have understood is wildcards, you can choose any colors you want. And so, first of all, Chelsea Carey is wearing blue and I'm going to say a pretty dark orange. It looks kind of red. So, blue and orangish red. And the other wildcard team is also blue and red.
Yeah.
Like, why did they have to be so similar? And by the way, I don't like either of them, the way they look, but why are they so similar? And they're in the same pool.
And my other critique is the Team Canada jackets that are just solid red. I look at them and I think I'm watching Newfoundland.
Yeah, and the Newfoundland jackets look the exact same.
Yeah.
Newfoundland, fortunately, is not in the same pool as Canada, so it won't come up.
But at least they could have gone with the white as a dominant color and red as the accent.
Yeah, like there were other options, I think.
I'm sorry, Dynasty Curling, we're like bashing here.
Well, we're not as harsh as we were last year.
No.
But yeah, there's a lot of things that I find are awkward. So like I don't like the but you know what? In Canada's defense here, they don't have that really weird gradient.
That's true. There's
And
just too much red.
I know. My brother actually sent me a picture that I need to tell you about, and it's that he believes that they were inspired by the Jacksonville Jaguars had a helmet a few years ago with a gradient on it. It was kind of, I think, I don't remember right, but I think it was gold transitioning into like some pewterish color.
Oh my god.
And it was not so much of a gradient. It was very abrupt,
Okay.
but it was very much panned by all kinds of people, and the Jaguars very quickly got rid of it. However, I believe that's what they were wearing when they almost made the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. So,
Okay.
yeah, look it up. So, I don't know if anybody wants to, I don't know whose idea it was to let's make jerseys based off this failed Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hey, I don't know. Give a couple years to Trevor Lawrence. Maybe he'll turn it around. Pull a
I know.
Bengals on this.
But one more quick comment on the uniforms here, because you've let me down. I was hoping for a much
I'm
bigger
sorry.
rant than that. I also find them very disjointed. And I had one of those like wake up at 3 a.m. aha moments where I finally figured out what they were going for with these jackets. So I
Okay.
think I can explain it. Colin Hodgson, if you're listening, we apologize first of all, but tell me if I'm right. So you know how their names are printed on this banner?
Yeah.
And that was what they had last year when they had that retro look.
Yeah.
Because people haven't put names on banners like that since the 80s.
Yeah. And FYI, we liked the retro look.
Oh yeah, the retro idea last year was great. I was disappointed that they didn't do it at the Briar either. Maybe from a different era or something. But anyways, so that's what the banner is from. Like that's from the 80s type of curling. Gradients became popular on, I'm not going to say fashionable, but popular on a lot of sports jerseys in the 90s. Like a lot of NHL teams started putting gradients on their jerseys around that time.
Because it also coincides with the release of Microsoft PowerPoint.
There you go. So it's all working out
All
here.
connected.
And then those like pinstripes that they've got around their like clavicle, that's a very 2000s look. That's very similar to what like Kevin Martin wore when he went to the Olympics. And
Right.
so my thought is I believe that Colin Hodgson decided I'm going to combine the 80s, 90s and 2000s all in one jersey.
Oh my
Here it is.
All the decades.
I think I'm right. I think I've got it figured out.
I think
It's
you
like
got
a
it.
little thing from each era. And all things considered, it's not that bad. I mean,
No.
we've seen such horrendous jerseys over the years, and even with your spectacular takedown of those Briar jerseys last year, they were still way better than some other things I think that curling has pulled out in the past.
Yeah, well, recent years, I think that last year's Briar is by far the worst.
The worst since Dynasty took
Yeah,
over. But
exactly.
even to me, the worst Dynasty jersey is much better than the best of any other manufacturer.
That's true. That's true. Although I have to say, I did like some of the Mondetta. I do like the Mondetta era of jerseys and jackets.
That's what the pinstripes on the shoulders are all about. I think it's a nod to Montana.
Whatever happened to Mondetta? We don't hear about them anymore. Like no one.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of liked those too. But So I think I figured out what they're going for, but I don't know how I feel about it. Part of me is like, pick a lane and like
Yeah,
commit to something.
exactly.
Um,
I really like simplistic designs just in
yeah.
general. And I find the past couple years, although Dynasty has made some cool looking shirts and stuff, I just find there's just too much. Chanel, Madame Coco Chanel has a great quote when it comes to accessorizing. The faux pas is to put too many accessories on, and her rule of thumb is to always just remove the last accessory that you put on, so you'll never have too much.
So my sweater.
Sure. So maybe Dynasty can take the same approach as Chanel, the fashion powerhouse. Just whatever your design is, just take the last element out and you're probably good.
Yeah, less is more.
Exactly.
But you know what? Like, I really do like Dynasty's look, though. I know that I didn't like the cowboy hat, and to me, the awkward thing last year was that
Oh, the cowboy hat. I forgot about
the
the
cowboy hat, which in your rant you mentioned looked like a Mario Koopa, and the electrical tape running across the front, that slash, that was weird.
yeah.
Like I remember when it was in Kingston the year before, but I remember being there and noticing that like Kingston has this famous clock tower, and they actually put the clock tower into their jerseys. It was really faded though. It was like the cowboy hat. It was better done then. Like it was very discreet. It was the kind of thing like you only noticed after watching it on TV for a week. That I kind of liked. It was a very subtle nod to where they were playing. They could have done better than that cowboy hat last year, though. I liked the idea of paying homage to wherever you're playing, but
There's more to Calgary than the Stampede. Anyways,
yeah.
I digress. So, in addition to the Scotties playing this weekend, do you know what else is starting?
Um, Something big. The Olympics. I'm shocked we have time for it.
We don't, but let's squeeze it in here. Yeah, so the Olympics mixed doubles is starting on February 2nd,
Which is, oh my god, that's in
Wednesday.
2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually starting before the official Olympics opening ceremonies. The only problem is that the games will be happening while we're asleep. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan of watching games not live.
Oh yeah, I hate it. I hate it. It's
But we won't have a choice.
I know. I've done a few things like that where I've put my phone in airplane mode and like watch something live, but I did that once and then I accidentally changed the channel. Like I sat on the remote, changed the channel and just when I came back it was already over.
Oh
Like
no.
there's so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
Actually, you know how wait, we're going to come full circle here, Kel, and it's the last you know how we were talking about the women's soccer gold medal game. That was the last time I did that cuz that was on at like 4 in the morning or
Yeah,
something
I
like
didn't
that.
watch any of the Olympics last summer
I
because
know, and this is my I'm still disappointed in you. But I taped that. I watched it, and I kind of had it ruined because I woke up at 7 in the morning and watched it, and I heard this car driving down the street like honking its horn, and I was like, I don't know, like, are they actually celebrating, or is that guy just caught in traffic and like showing some road rage? But it was a kind of
that's
honk.
a celebration.
So that's a celebration. He was the only guy doing it. Like there was just one person out celebrating out here in suburban Montreal. But that's kind of what I expected. Just maybe one person celebrating. That's what clued me in that it was spoiled.
Yeah, so the first draw, Canada's actually not playing in it, but the first draw is on Wednesday, February 2nd at 8:05 China Standard Time, which is UTC plus 8. So I don't know what
Okay.
time that is that would be like super early in the morning for us.
Yeah. Isn't it like though just 12 hours?
China, FYI, spans actually 5 time zones, but the whole country exists in one time zone.
Exists as one. That's why I think it's actually 12 hours if I
13
remember.
hours
13.
ahead
Okay,
of
so it's
Montreal.
okay, yeah, so it's 13 hours ahead. So if it's at 8:05 there, is that PM or AM?
It's 20:05, so 8 p.m.
Okay, so 7 a.m. here.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I can throw that on before I go to work. Okay, so those draws we can catch like before work. By catch, I mean like I'll watch. Kelly's giving me this look right now of like you can be watching this. I'm not. Yeah, you're right. I will not see much of it.
Yeah, but even yeah, I would probably catch like the first half of the game. But yeah, I also cannot watch curling while working at the same time.
No, I can't either. It's been good for like doing my laundry and like paying bills, that kind of thing, but actual work, I don't think I could.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so the at least for the Olympics, mixed doubles is starting first, and then that will wrap up before the men's and women's traditional play begins. So I guess next week we can,
We'll have watched enough to talk about it briefly, I
yeah,
suppose.
we'll come at you with a Scotties winner and some actual Olympic talk because you haven't dived into that yet.
Right, but this cannot be an outro. We have one more thing we have to get off
Oh,
our
okay.
chest
What
here.
do we have to
Yes,
get off?
we cannot possibly talk about a tournament of hearts without talking about I'm only human after all.
No. I'm just gonna stop the podcast right
No,
here.
no, wait, no. It's back. And the
I
worst part
know.
is,
The first commercial of the first draw was that stupid "I'm only human"
I know,
commercial.
the dog peed on the floor and it's like, oh, here we go. And the worst part is, I don't think I told you this, but I meant to. I even wrote it down and I forgot to tell you. But like 3 or 4 weeks ago when we were watching football, it came back. That ad was on during football, and I was going, oh no, I thought they'd gotten rid of it. They're bringing it back just in time for curling season. And lo and behold, we don't get a lot of things right here, but I got that one right.
Yep. I really hope that TSN and all their brands just update their commercials.
I know, it's really bad. So I had this random idea here because a listener told me last year, Kelly knows who this listener is, that he emailed Scotties or Kruger, whoever it was, in disgust about these ads and about like, why do you think I want to look at a baby's diaper and a kid's like nose exploding and
Mhm.
all of this stuff? And they got back a very PR-ish reply. Just we're unapologetically human. It was probably not written by a real person. I'm wondering if said listener, if you're listening again, how about complaining again? I'm curious to see if you get the same email.
Oh, if it's an automated
Yes.
response,
Maybe I'll make one. I'm not really offended. I'm annoyed, but I kind of want to see if I get the exact same reply word for word. So,
do
yeah,
it.
maybe we'll see what happens. We'll keep you posted.
Right. And before we log off here, then, I have one question for you. Have
Okay.
you opened your Questrade account?
No, I'm quite busy, Kelly, because you see, when the cab is your office, you never get tired of going to.
Okay, that's it. We're done. We're done. Catch us next week. Bye.